Alright, I'm back with another one of these commentaries. This is the live stream from yesterday, January 5th. It was a 1-2, but it's really just a 1-2 with like 10-20 plus whatever the fuck. I mean, you'll see what it kind of turns into. Anyway, jump right into it. There's a $5 straddle on, and I open ace 10 suited from the hijack to $20. Folds around to Chaz in the big blind. He makes the call, and the straddle gets out of the way. So it got heads up to a flop 10-7-4. I think this is a pretty good board for me to go for a big c-bet on. I bet 2/3 pot. Looking to charge draws, and if I get check raised, I'm definitely not going anywhere. So, and I think this is a board where I definitely have a range advantage. I have all the overpairs, strong top pairs, some good draws to go along with it, and obviously all the sets. And Chaz does end up check raising to 110, and I thought he would be quite polarized in this spot given how I made my c-bet was on the bigger side. So, I mean, that doesn't really, I'm calling regardless, but that was just my thinking at the time, given given the action. And turn is an 8 of diamonds, and I really don't like it at all. He's definitely capable of having all the straights, obviously flushes, but he checks it over to me, and I find this really interesting. He's definitely capable of pulling a move with a double check raise here, so that's why I check behind and just take my showdown value. But yeah, the 8 of diamonds is a really, really bad card for me. River is a brick, and he actually checks again, and I quickly check behind, happy to take my showdown value. But I kind of regret it when I see him turn over King 10. I'm not sure if I could really get away with a value bet there. Just when he checks the turn and checks the river, he's pretty. He seems a little capped. Although Chaz is a tricky player, and is definitely capable of putting some moves on. If I did try to go for some value on the river there, he could raise and put me in a really tough spot. All right, this I believe was the very next hand. I pick up jacks in +2, and there's a $5 straddle on. Again, I'm open to $20. Preston calls on my direct left, and I get 3-bet by Val on the button to, I believe, 125. And quick few things to note about Val. I've played with him a couple times off stream at the regular tables, and he's very passive and he's very sticky. And from what I can tell, he does not 3-bet very often at all, mainly just premiums and no bluffs as far as I can tell. So yeah, I'm definitely treading lightly here, but Jax is way too strong to just fold here. I don't think I'm going to go for a 4-bet here, even though Preston's in between, just because I think Val's is super, super nutted here. And I think I do beat some of his value, though. I think he might be 3-betting 9s and 10s. Maybe not 9s, but I think he definitely could 3-bet 10s based on what I know about him. Anyway, we go 3 ways to a flop. 8-8-5. Pretty good flop for me. Not too excited to see him bet here because he's obviously repping a better hand than mine. I mean, I guess he could have 10s, but that would be a bit of an overplay, although he's definitely capable of overplaying. So that's why I make the call. It would be kind of ridiculous to fold jacks even against somebody who's 3-betting as tight as Val.
I would prefer if maybe there was a spade on the board for c-betting, but especially when you're in position and you can kind of just get some free equity. But I don't hate a bet here. But you're not going to get Eric off jacks with 1 bet, that's for sure.
Turn comes to 9 of clubs. Don't hate it. I mean, it is an undercard, but now I do lose to pocket 9s if you happen to 3-bet that. And then now when he continues for 300, I really just don't think I have the best hand ever here. He has to be blasting off with overcards, and I just hadn't ever seen him make a play like that. It would be kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's what he was doing, but I just felt like I had a pure bluff catcher at this point. Like, expecting him to bet 10s like that would be a bit ambitious, even for him. I like ace-king and ace-queen of clubs, pick up additional equity. So I just felt like, at best, I was like slightly ahead of those hands and just drawing dead against queens, kings, aces. But yeah, he happened to bluff me. And it's worth noting again that it became clear as the night went on that he was playing very tight and wasn't comfortable with the stakes that we were playing. He was playing very differently than he had at the 1-2 tables that I play with him at, like the regular tables. And in a hand about 10 minutes later, he picked up ace king, 3-bet pre-flop, c-bet the flop, and then did not continue on the turn. He was out of position, but again, like that's like he had the opportunity to take a very similar line with ace king, and he chose not to. So yeah, like that just kind of made me like at the time I was thinking like when he took that ace king to showdown, I was thinking, oh, that's like I made a great fold by jacks. And then I look back at the stream and I'm like, oh shit, well he just blasted off with ace queen. All right, moving on. There is a $10 straddle from under the gun, and I pick up ace king of clubs in +1 first to act, and I raise to 35. Get called on my direct left by Preston.
Now it goes down by a lot for Preston.
And it folds around to Zach in the small blind. And he's a solid player, definitely capable of squeezing with a decently wide range here. He 3-bets to 150. And so we are a little under 2,000 effective, and with the $10 straddle on, I'm happy to get to 4-bet and get this in. So I 4-bet to 475. Preston gets out of the way and it's back on Zach. If he rips, I'm calling, as I mentioned previously. He asked for a count, and I have 1,300 behind after I put out the bet of 475. Yeah, I think the graphics are a little long. I think I had a little bit. I had like 1,300 exactly, but I mean it doesn't really make a difference. He ends up making the call though, so we go to a flop heads up in position with ace king of clubs, and there's an ace in the window. It comes ace jack 7. Happy with this flop. I'm not going anywhere. With an SPR of about 1.3, I end up deciding on a c-bet of quarter pot, which is 250. Looking to jam turn. I Hollywood for a bit, as I would with all my hands. But yeah, go for a small c-bet just to keep his range wide and ensure that I have a reasonable turn jam for a little bit less than pot.
Yeah, I like this down bet. You can get called by a lot.
Around 2/3 pot actually. When he ends up making this call.
Those are now ahead. Any ace-x hand.
Can't fault him for making the call here. The bet is super small. But yeah, he's probably not loving this spot with the ace and the flop.
So, and especially with Zach having the king of spades also accounted for. Yeah. They're pretty much.
You go to a turn with an SPR of about 2/3, 9 of clubs, safe turn, and when he checks, I rip it. I don't have too many bluffs here just because the SPR is so low, but I do think obviously combo draws, and then maybe if I'm feeling spicy, like king queen with a spade, maybe king jack of spades, although I'm not sure about that because the jack has showdown value. But then again, ranges are so tight on the turn here that the jack just might be no good. And king jack of spades would get better hands like queens and kings to fold. So yeah, and we do see that Zach is holding the king of spades, so that blocks a lot of my bluffs, and just a pretty clear fold. And spoiler alert, he does end up making the fold. And yeah, we take this one down.
It's hard when you're playing against players that are capable of bluffing. It's definitely hard to make this fold more often than call.
Definitely is. And he's getting a fairly reasonable price. Does make a good laydown.
Yeah, great laydown. Hard to fold the Cowboys. It hurts so much.
It's a sickening flop. You're just praying for no ace, and the ace always comes.
No, I mean, it hurts to be in that situation with the kings, and it's hard to fold, but it does make the right laydown. And luckily for him, doesn't see, Queen of Spades on the turn would have been brutal.
Yeah. I will say, I think it's a little bit easier to make these folds on the light.
All right, moving on. There's no straddle in this hand, but Val does open under the gun to $50, which I thought was pretty weird, obviously. And if you'll see the unicorn in front of us, we are playing the stand-up game, so that might come into play. Or I mean, what I mean to say is that might be a reason why he opens so large. I make the call on the button with ace-jack offsuit, and the blinds fold, so I'm happy to go heads up. Although I'm not too sure where I'm at. I'm not sure what kind of range he's opening under the gun to 25x with. But yeah, we both have unicorns in front of us, so we both are playing the stand-up game. Flop comes jack high, which is great. So he leads, he continues for a bet of $75. And obviously I'm going nowhere with my jack. I beat value, and I beat whatever other bullshit he's betting here, like, say, pocket sevens.
A lot of hands that you want to gain value from, but does just call. And a little more cautiously.
We continue to a turn. Pot is $250. Turns a total brick of 5 of spades. And he bets again. This time for $100. And I can, or excuse me, 125. I couldn't see that last green chip. Yeah, I consider raising briefly, just because I don't think the sizing is indicative of an overpair. But, I don't want to scare him off of a bluff or a 10. I think he definitely could bet a 10 like this. So I just make the call. River's a 9, not loving that because King-Queen gets there, but when he checks, I am 100% sure that I have the best hand. So the question is, what sizing to go for here? I'm not really sure. I go for a sizing of 225 because I think he'll call a 10. That's kind of what I put him on. I think he'll triple barrel a jack. So I don't maybe maybe he checks river with a jack with a weak kicker, but I don't think he's opening that pre-flop anyway. But yeah, so I'm really targeting a 10 here. And whatever other, I don't know exactly what else he could have here. Like, I didn't expect him to have pocket sevens in this spot. But yeah, I mean, we can. Val's a little unorthodox in his style for sure.
I'm trying to think of many hands that would call that you have beat. Yeah, I can't find too many.
He tanks for a really long time. He really considers making this call with the sevens.
Hoping that ace king tries to rep king queen.
Looks like Val is really considering a call here with fourth pair. I'm a bit surprised to see him taking here. He would. I don't even.
But yeah, he does end up making the fold. And we take it down with the top pair, top kicker. Have to show in order to sit down. Or, I guess, metaphorically sit down because of the stand-up game. Yeah, I get rid of my unicorn there.
You just beat nothing. Like, I don't even know what you would be beating. Ace-queen? And ace-king? It's like leniency.
Yeah.
So don't try to play out of the rack, is the point.
Yeah.
Being made.
All right, moving onward. $5 straddle under the gun. And we see Jacob. He meant to raise, but he didn't actually announce raise, so that's actually just a call, even though he put a green chip out there. So I limp behind with the pocket threes, hoping to hit a set. And hoping nobody else behind raises. Alex makes the call. Val makes the call.
terrible hand to just have to limp in. You definitely would rather.
SETI completes in the big blind,
I mean, if it looks
and
like
we
you're
go,
trying to
I
raise
think,
and you
6
don't,
ways
people are gonna
to
raise you
in
off.
a 6-way limp pot to a flop
Yeah, that definitely
because the straddle checks his option.
cautious. And
And the flop comes 3-5-7. Absolute dream flop for this scenario.
pre-flop.
Limping and
Does allow
hitting
the
bottom
great
set. And
contribution for
even
Eric.
better,
Oh yeah, I didn't even
the
realize
guy who
that.
meant to open raise,
And
but
Eric
just,
is gonna wanna play this
you
a
know,
little faster
he
with
meant
the
to open
bubble
raise.
draw.
He basically 2x's the flop.
Especially when Jacob wanted to
He
raise,
bet 75 into a pot
looks
of
like an open pair
30,
that wants to
41?
continue. Yeah, case 3. Val says
No, 31. 31.
wow, and Eric is gonna play this slow as well. Going
And
for
of course,
the
I
calling today.
continue. I end up calling. I could raise here, but I I think he was on tilt. He had just lost a big pot, I think a little bit before this. And he seemed like he was on tilt. I don't know if he was just like acting or something,
No.
because obviously he flopped the nuts.
King on the turn.
But yeah, I just call and I let him blast off with overpairs, flush draws, any other bluffs he has. You can see the SPR is getting low, and I feel like I can get it all in by the river. Whether I don't have to raise in order to get it all in by the river. Turns a 9 of hearts, safe card, and he continues for a big bet of 275, leaving himself with only 350 behind. And I go back and forth for a while on whether to just jam or call.
Be most afraid of like
I feel like jamming. I end up actually making the call because I feel like jamming would just look way too strong here, considering how little he has behind, and I didn't want him to like fold a flush draw, fold like some gutter, or an overpair. I mean, like, well, he's not folding an overpair, but like something like, I don't know. I was just like, you know, I mean, it's very clear we're going to get it all in by the river. And I didn't want to risk him hero folding anything, so I end up actually making the call, even though maybe I could just raise all in here and just get call every time. River's a king. He shoves, I snap call with my set, and he shows the 6-4, which is just ridiculous. Yeah, so sick hand right there. Like, that was just going in either way.
I wonder if Eric called with the he's the underdog. He makes it happen.
All right, this was the very next hand. There's another $5 straddle on, and I pick up 10-9 suited under the gun +2.
Yeah, it was a brutal spot last hand.
And I open it up to $25.
It hurts so much when you flop a set. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there, but flopping a set is one of the
Preston folds, Alex folds, Val folds.
especially when you're
Chaz
playing
is
to
away
raise.
from the table and folds his button.
Ever
But SETI makes the call,
hand that hits that board.
and Zach also calls in the big blind. Straddle completes, and we go 4 ways in position
6, 4, and 8, 6, right? That's literally the only hand
to a
you can
flop
do.
with a $100 pot,
Hands. Sounds like a lot of hands when I list them like that, but it's really not that many.
and we flop middle pair on Jack 10-4. You know, there are worse flops for 10-9 suited, but also not particularly good, as this interacts a lot with all 3 of their ranges, I feel like. So I just check behind, looking to get a cheap showdown.
Yeah, I don't blame the check.
And the turn is a deuce of clubs.
This is an interesting turn.
No, not the best card as it completes the flush. But, you know, that without any betting, when it checks to me, I feel like I might have the best hand. You know, I might not.
Eric Nielsen saying
But
go Eric.
I'm just going to take my showdown value. I think if I had a 10 with a stronger kicker, I'd probably value bet turn.
It's like the Obama meme.
But I'm just going to check and pray no club on the river. And the river is a brick. It's a 4 of spades. And I think I definitely have the best hand when it gets checked to me again a 3rd time.
Yeah, picking up $100.
So I actually decide to go for a value bet. I go on the bigger side as well. Make it look like I'm trying to steal this pot. I go 75 into a pot of 100. Looking to get called light by a lower pocket pair, maybe some ace high, but it folds around quickly, and I take it down.
Wouldn't be I don't know if I would want to with that many 4 people when you hit that 4. Even low flushes, but yeah, I think there's still some hands that you can get value from.
There's definitely some for sure.
It's hard in that spot, but also you kind of like when you just lose that 3s hand again, it goes back to like, man, I really want to like start getting.
All right, this next hand, it folds all the way around to the blinds. Zach folds the small blind. Mark folds the big blind. And it's a $5 into the gun, and I'm in the $10 plus 1 straddle, and then Preston put on the triple straddle for 25. So Jacob calls in the first straddle for 25. I call with the ace deuce of spades, and Preston raises to 100 more, so 125 total. And I thought about limp re-raising here. I'm not really sure. It's probably something I need to study more. The blind v blind play, but you know, it's not something that really comes up a lot in live poker. So I do end up making the call, and we go out of position, heads up. We are about 2,000 effective heading into the flop.
Yeah.
And the flop's a good one. It's Jack 5-5 with 2 spades. And I definitely do have some 5x in my range here. I have some suited kings. Some suited, like King 5 suited, Ace 5 suited is what I meant. 5-4 suited, 6-5 suited. Then I also have some Jack X in my range that wants to deny equity. So when he continues for $85, it's a pretty small C-bet. And I think this is a pretty good opportunity to check raise because with, especially with ace deuce of spades, because it unblocks worse flush draws. Like if I had like ace 9, ace 10 of spades, I'd probably raise those pre-flop. But you know, if I didn't, those block his lower flush draws, like that contain the 10 of spades or the 9 of spades. So I make a small check raise to 250. And he continues. We go to a turn, and it's an ace of clubs, so very interesting card. Obviously, it's better for his range than it is for mine, especially if he floats quite a bit here with some ace high hands. But I do pick up a lot of showdown value, and I'm chopping with any ace that has a kicker weaker than a jack. I'd probably range check this turn. And ace deuce of spades is a great hand to balance it out, balance out my checking range. Pretty strong, you know. Overall, I'm very happy with this turn card, to be honest. Even though, you know, I could just be way behind against like ace king, ace queen here, ace jack. Obviously, I have the spades as well. Bottom line, I'm never folding turn or river, really. Like, even if he just ships the river, I'm just, like, in my mind, I was just calling and expecting to chop. Or win against weaker flush draws.
I definitely do like this bet. Eric has a tough decision. It's definitely not fold, but...
And, yeah, his bet sizing on the turn is also on the smaller side.
Yeah, it's more of a, how do I
It's a little more than 1/3 pot.
or to maximize my chances of winning the pot versus
even
what am I actually thinking of doing?
Yeah, and even, I mean...
But yeah, we can see that heading into the river, there's exactly 1 SPR. So maybe that's the reason for the smaller size. It's in order to set up a turn jam, or at least make it look like he's setting up a turn jam. River's an offsuit queen. I check, he checks, and I expect to have the best hand now when he doesn't bet a river. And that's exactly what happens.
Really good turn card for Eric.
So pick up a very nice pot there.
Not better in terms of hand strength, but better maybe in terms of even getting paid off
Yeah.
than the spade on the turn. Obviously, you'd rather have the flush and, you know, be
On
certain.
Tuesday, we had Hannah blind limp with Jack 4 offsuit, Chaz blind shove 10 deuce suited, blind versus blind, and Hannah blind call. The all in for 1,000.
This next hand, there's a $10 straddle.
Wow, the best
Looks like a double straddle.
No, especially the Robin.
And Jacob calls from +2. And with the ace-6 suited, I decide to raise to 55 over the limp.
I like taking it for a raise rather than just a limp.
And it folds around to the straddle gets out of the way. Yeah, and we're going heads up. When Jacob makes the call, we're going heads up to a flop in position.
I think it's because all these guys are A+ students.
Jacob's limping range is very, very wide here. And I feel like on a board of Jack 9-5, he has a lot of middling strength hands that I can really target. So with my backdoor straight, backdoor flush draw, and an overcard, I make a C bet of $50, looking to double barrel if I get called. Jacob does make the call. And we see an offsuit 7 on the turn.
Oh, wow.
So I don't pick up the backdoor, but I do pick up straight draw. And I decide to go for a big bet here, repping some like strong top pairs, as well as over pairs, of course. And I feel like I can get him to fold a lot of his gut shots that paired up on the turn, like 8-7, 6-7 in particular. And I feel like he's definitely calling me on the flop with like bottom pair hands that'll fold to this size. 9x could even fold to this size for sure. So really, I expect to get called pretty tight. Or I don't expect to be called very often here when I pot the turn. And he does end up making the fold, and we take that down. All right, this next hand, there's a blind raise from Chaz in Under the Gun +3, my bad, to $100. And it folds all the way around to me in the big blind with ace-king offsuit. And I raise it at 300. And Alex is in the double straddle, the $20 double straddle. And I know the graphics say that I 3-bet, but since it's a blind raise, you can just really call it my raise, just a normal raise. And Alex is really 3-betting instead of 4-betting. Anyway, he bumps it up to 825, and I see that he doesn't have much behind. He only has 1,700 behind after his 3-bet. And of course, I'm happy to get it in with ace king in this configuration. So I shove.
Although Alex is a little too committed to fold here, but yes, he is not happy. Especially
he goes into the tank for a little bit.
Yeah, he won all of the chips in front of him.
And ends up making the call.
Chaz just rip it versus ace king and just have the best.
He asks to if we want to run it once or twice. I leave it up to him, and he decides twice. But we end up having the same hand anyway, so it wouldn't really have mattered. And I'll let the commentators handle the run out.
They said twice, but I'm not sure if they're still running it twice as they have the same hand.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, this is usually going to be a chop here.
Eric still has 52% here, which is indicative of the hearts, probably.
Right. Like we know Chaz folded 2 clubs, so there's probably more hearts in the deck than clubs.
Oh, and free roll for Alex on this board. And Chaz really would have flopped. Insane.
Gutter and flush draw.
And a pair draw.
Yeah, they're chopping at this point.
Oh, wow. Chaz would have bricked.
That's pretty funny.
And that's a lot of clubs being taken away. And almost no hearts being taken away. And there we go. We have 2 hearts. Oh my gosh, another heart on the turn. Are we going to see a brutal ending, brutal spot for Alex here? And the dealer is giving us a little sweat here. What is this sweat? Oh.
And it is a chop.
Oh, and all that for $55. Alex Hart is... Alex. That was a really good one.
All right, this next hand, there's no straddle on. Jacob limps under the gun for $2, and I get ace king again, and raised to $30 from +1. This is going to fold all the way around to the straddle, or not the straddle, the big blind, and he comes along, and Jacob also makes the call. So we go 3 ways to a flop in position with ace king here.
Mark is going to go ahead and call with the king 4 suited, and Jacob is going to call with the...
And king 4 suited is not a hand I expected Mark to be calling with. He'd been playing pretty, straightforward all night, like not getting too far out of line. So I expected him to be a little bit, have a reasonably tight range here. So on a flop of 10-7 deuce, no backdoor, I just check and hope to hit an overcard. Or, something to give me a little bit more equity. And then the 9 on the turn, just not a particularly good card for me, and I think this hits Jacob more than Mark in my eyes. This 9, because he could definitely have like a hand like 9-8, 8-7, 10-8, bunch of top pairs. This kind of middling board is really good for Jacob's limp call range, I think. And then I wasn't really sure what kind of hands Mark would have. But with him left to act behind, and he could definitely have a piece of this board, I think it's ace king is just a fold here. So that's what I do, and he ends up raising to 125, which I thought was really interesting.
The sizing is weird. I was gonna say I do like a re-raise, but I would like to see.
And Jacob is sitting there with just the 6 high gut shot that might not even be good if he hits. So he Hollywoods for a bit and lets it go.
But does make the fold.
Yeah, it almost looked like he was looking at going for another raise there, and maybe making it like 500 or something, and trying to put like the exact hand that Mark has in the blender, but does end up just letting it go. Smaller size.
I believe we're only 44 subscribers away from that.
Hey, we've gotten 7 subscribers since we started this stream. Let's go.
Yeah, actually 10.
All right, this next hand I'm in the $20 straddle. Alex opens early position to $80. Val makes the call on his direct left. Mark gets in there for $80 as the big blind, and I defend my straddle with king 7 of hearts.
And then Eric in there with king 7 suited. So a lot of people sharing cards here. Actually, every card except for the queen.
We go 4 ways to a flop, second to act, and the flop's not bad. It's king queen deuce rainbow, flopping top pair. Checking it over to the initial raiser, who checks behind as well. And Val wastes no time in betting a hefty amount of $225. And I really hate this because, as mentioned earlier, Val is pretty passive, pretty sticky. And just this bet did not make me feel like... I just didn't feel like I had the best hand. As simple as that. At this point, I know about the ace-queen bluff that he pulled on me when I had jacks, but I still didn't think that my king 7 was good, and especially when Mark called, so I just get out of the way. Turn is a 10. Val ships it for his last... the stack sizes are very wrong. You can see he shipped it for like 400, and even though the graphics say that he had 1,600.
It sounds like they're going twice.
And Mark makes the call after picking up a straight draw on the turn and gets bailed out on the river ace. So they chop this pot up.
Wow, unfortunate spot for Val. He definitely was off a little bit. Right.
All right, this next hand, there's a $5 straddle. Val limps from +1. Zach opens cutoff to 25. And I have 9s in the small blind and decide to 3-bet to isolate. And I make it 105. However, after the big blind folds, Alex comes along, and this kind of set off alarm bells for me because, I mean, we saw earlier he wasn't too thrilled to get an ace-king against a 4-bet jam. So that indicated to me he was a little bit on the tighter side, like against pre-flop aggression in particular. But you know, I didn't want to make like a broad assumption, but I still really thought that I could, like, he could have a hand like tens, jacks, maybe even queens, in this configuration when he cold calls my 3-bet. So that comes along. The flop is 7-4 deuce rainbow. Pretty good flop for 9, so I make a bet of equity denial for 125. But they both make the call, which I was not too happy about. I wanted to get it heads up. So we continue to a turn 3 ways out of position, and it comes a 4, which is all right. I mean, it blocks sets, but I feel like sets would raise flop at some frequency. So I check because I feel like I would have a hard time getting called by many weaker hands if I were to lead out for a second time. I didn't want 8s to hero fold. I didn't want like 7-6 to hero fold or something. I don't know. Like if they happen to have that. Alex bets 325, and I really don't like this at all. It just feels like he has a bigger pocket pair than me. After cold calling the 3-bet, there aren't very many intuitive bluffs here. Like, is he really calling the flop with backdoor spades? I didn't think so, and that's why I ended up making the fold. I didn't really see too many bluffs that he could have in this spot, and I decided to let it go. It's a nice play by Alex with the ace-5 suited there. Gets me to fold a big hand, and the commentators roast me for it.
Better spot.
Yeah, that's the second.
See, that would have happened.
That was the second time that we saw somebody fold an overpair on the turn to a single bet, I believe. Somebody folded jacks earlier.
It was Eric as well.
Was it Eric?
Against,
Oh, yeah.
against Val's ace queen.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that was the hand. Yeah, Eric.
All right, next hand we have a $5 straddle. And Mark opens it up from +2 to $20. And Jacob makes the call. And I have ace deuces spades. And with the cold caller in between, I think I'm definitely more incentivized to 3-bet squeeze a little lighter. So I go for the raise to 125.
Yeah, I like the fold. I mean, this hand's just not good enough against a 3-bet.
I expect to get called by Mark fairly often here, especially, like, you know, he's raising early position. He's one of the tighter players at the table. But I'm just trying to get it at least heads up and, you know, force Jacob out of the pot. And, you know, spice things up a bit for the live stream. That's exactly what happens. Mark calls, Jacob folds. We go heads up to a pretty solid flop, 5, 6, 9, 2 spades. This is definitely a board where he's going to have the nut advantage and range advantage. So for that reason, I check behind, and I think this, you know, including some flush draws in my check back range, is definitely going to help me get paid on later streets. And I do end up hitting the flush in the turn when when it brings the 4 of spades. He checks again, and now it's time to start building the pot. And I go for a bet size of 180.
Yeah, it goes for a little more than half pot.
About 2/3 pot. And he calls very quickly. Doesn't think about it for very long at all. So I put him on, you know, like some sort of like single spade type hand, or maybe like an overpair. And when the ace of diamonds on the river means those brick out, I kind of, I think about it for a while. It's a little, you know, I wasn't really sure what type of bet size to go to, but I think in this spot, I either have like a super nutted hand, or I just have a pure bluff. Like, I definitely bet ace king with a spade like this. And I consider that to be like in like the worst of the nutted hands category. So I think, you know, just trying to target overpairs that don't believe, like overpairs to the 9 that don't believe me. Going with a huge overbet because I'm repping such a polarized range. And he calls pretty quickly because he river top 2. And I feel like I got close to the max on that one with the overbet in the river.
This spot it does work out.
All right, we have another $5 straddle, and Mark opens it up from under the gun +2 to $20. Jacob folds, and I'm watching the game. Nuggets are kicking the Clippers' ass. And see that I have a couple of queens in the hijack. And 3-bet to 75. Preston on my direct left decides to cold 4-bet to 210. And I know he's capable of making some moves. So I was already planning on 5-betting when it got around to me. And then when Chaz makes the cold call in the small blind, that just gives me the green light to go with a huge sizing for my 4-bet. Or for my 5-bet, excuse me. Mark lays it down, and it's back on me. And it's just a question of how big do we want to raise it here. And it should be noted that we are playing the stand-up game. You can't see, but I do have a unicorn in front of me, which means I am metaphorically standing. So maybe that factors into Chaz's decision to make the cold call with such a loose hand as Jack-8 suited. But I end up setting on a sizing of 950, and I get to throw my $1,000 plaque out there. Feels good. Preston gets out of the way, and Chaz ends up coming along. So we go out of position, or sorry, we are in position, heads up, to a flop in a 5-bet pot. And the graphics say he has 800 behind. That's wrong. As you can see, he has a bunch of blacks. He's probably got like 4K behind. I think he's got me covered by a little bit. He checks in the dark, and the flop comes King Queen 4. So I'm loving life, and I don't think this is going to hit him very often at all. So I decide to check, get a little sneaky, and let him catch up with something. See what the turn can bring. Maybe we can get some more money in there. Especially with such a low SPR, I think checking flop is perfectly fine as well. Turns a total brick, deuce of spades, and he just open folds. And I show the queens because that's part of the the stipulation that you have to show in order to sit down in the stand-up game. And everyone has a good laugh about that. Chaz's soul read. All right, we have another blind raise by Chaz, under the gun to 200. Seti makes the call in +1, and I have Queen 10 suited, and I come along as well. Maybe I can raise, but I'm not really sure what to do against a blind raise, especially at such a low SPR. We're like 20-something big blinds effective. It's kind of ridiculous. Folds all the way around to Chaz, and since it's a blind raise, he doesn't get an option, so we just go 3 ways to a flop, in position, with a very playable, good-looking hand, Queen 10 suited. King 6-8, and Chaz checks in the dark, and I don't think he's looked at his hand yet, but you can see he just does right there, right before I make the bet of 225, and I bet with, my couple of backdoors, knowing that Chaz has a completely random hand that's going to fold a lot. And Seti, I feel like Seti thinks I have a pretty tight image. Or my image in Seti's mind is pretty tight. So I think I can get him to fold a lot here, and that's what happens. In the penultimate hand here, we have a $5 straddle. Jacob raises to 25, and I decide to go for spicy 3-bet with the ace-10 offsuit in the hijack. Unfortunately, Val comes along in the small blind. I didn't realize that he'd be doing some bullshit with Queen 8 suited, but I guess he is. Chaz also makes the call in the big blind. Seti gets in there, and Jacob ends up making the call as well. So we go 5 ways to a flop, in which I was just hoping to isolate the initial raiser. That's rounders for you. Ace-10 off, not a very good hand multi-way, so I'm not really loving this situation at all. Flop comes Queen 3-4. with a couple of diamonds, and I flop nothing.
We see top pair for Val.
Val is first to act,
That's a rough spot to be in.
and he actually leads, I think. Yeah, he leads
There's a chance he gets
for
away from it.
what is that, 400? It's kind of insane. And Chaz just ships it. I'm obviously done. Said he's done, Jacob's done, I'm done. And Val
You can see him laugh.
kind of
Figure out how
got
much
himself into a fucked up spot here, but makes the call
Yeah. Once you commit
and
to it,
is
I'll show you.
pretty far behind against the bottom two pair of Chaz.
And 2 diamonds, that can be a bunch.
I think they end up running it once.
6.
That is correct.
6 and 8.
6 on the turn, and a queen on the river bails Val out.
He survived.
So tough beat for Chaz there, but he doesn't seem too broken up about it.
If there's someone that you're okay with sucking out on like that, it's probably Chaz because he does not care. He will
And
get,
chill for it, but the fries here are actually amazing.
they're
They're
probably
so
the best
good.
fries.
They really are. Like you wouldn't think the poker.
And in the final interesting hand of the stream, we have a $10 straddle. Folds around to Mark on the button, and he opens it up to 35.
All the food is good. Like the salmon I had earlier
I
was
have
very
jacks
good.
in the big blind,
It's all
and
very
I
good.
decide to
Very
3-bet
good, like Eric having jacks.
250. Pretty standard stuff.
Spots with these jacks, I feel like someone is way
Folds back to Mark,
every time.
and he makes the call.
With a hand, I think he's gonna
So we're going heads up out of position in a 3-bet pot.
be in pretty poor shape against jacks. A lot
We
of
are
those
really, really deep right now.
types of boards
4,200 effective.
he's gonna want are gonna contain a jack.
Except for this one.
Flop's pretty good. It's 10-7-4, and I think it could go either way between checking or c-betting here. But I decide to check
We do see two
mainly due to being out of position,
4 outs for
and
Mark
this
all
is
day.
probably a board where
Way more when you see the
he has more sets than I do. Probably doesn't have any 2 pairs,
Eric
but
is dog controlling a lot.
you know, this is a kind of a neutral board, I feel like, in this particular configuration.
I mean, you definitely can be beat, but
And he bets small. He bets a 1/3 pot.
queen 10, even jack 10.
So I decide to check raise to 375 in order to deny some equity.
Check raises. When you get called,
And, you know, I just feel like I really have the best hand here when he chooses this sizing.
here. And as everyone knows, we all hate jacks.
We'll see if Mark chooses to rep if the spade comes out.
Turns another 4. It's great.
Really
Wow.
Total brick and reduces, you know, set combinations that he
sets that he's gonna be up
could
against.
possibly have. Although I really am not worried about that.
But it also gives Mark a flush draw.
And brings in a second flush draw. I do have the jack of hearts, though.
Stacked
I don't expect him to really be calling flop with backdoor flushes anyway. So I just kind of continue for 450. Not too big of a bet. I'm just looking to keep in, you know, 10x,
Yeah, and this sizing is
550. And I feel like this is a reasonable price to charge draws. Maybe I could go bigger just because, you know, like he's pretty draw heavy when he calls my raise. I don't think he's never gonna have better overpairs. I think he 4-bets those pre-flop. He makes the call, and river is the 8 of spades. So I'm really not loving this because the front door spades get there. But I think I can definitely bet small for value here and plan to fold to a raise.
really depends on the sizing. Wow,
And if I check and just face a bet, I'm really going to hate life.
whoa, this sizing
So I decide to go real small. I go 600,
Yeah, interesting.
surprising.
and he goes pretty deep into the tank. You can see he's making faces. Not really. He's picked up second pair to go along with his open-ended straight draw, turn to flush draw, and then river second pair. So kind of a difficult spot for him considering how small my bet is. I bet 30% the size of the pot on the river, which is kind
Spot to go for
of weird.
all in overbet shove.
But, you know, he really has a pure bluff catcher here, and I don't have that many bluffs, like apart from backdoor hearts. Like I could definitely have some backdoor hearts, I guess, although I'm not sure what else that just doesn't get there on this river, really. So he tanks for a while and eventually ends up making the fold. And that's going to do it for this this stream. Didn't play nearly as many hands as the last one that I did a commentary on, but still feel like I played better for sure, I think. And that's reflected in the results. I had a huge session, although a big chunk of that I lost to Chaz in the big pot that we played off stream, where he backdoored a flush when I rivered 2-pair. Real tough hand there, but still had a great day overall. Feel like I played quite well, and excited to get into the games next week.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun to watch and commentate.
All right, you guys have a good night. Hope to see you next stream.
I heard one the other day. I was like,